This is our coil. It's what spins in the motor. It's the connection from the paper clips to the battery. This is what completes the connection and allows the coil itself to become an electromagnet, which then spins from the magnets that are placed on the battery. You'll notice this little curved piece on the end is not the same as this end. That's because our group, we had problems keeping the coil actually inside the paper clips and not sliding and falling off and disengaging that connection. So I decided that if we just curve one end, it will not fall off, and that's what we went with. You'll notice that this part is red and this part is more silverish or goldish. This is all copper wire. The red is what you see is the insulated parts, and this actual wire is coated in the red insulation. So you have to shave this off completely off of one side. As you can see, there's almost no red there, but on this side, if you look closely, you'll see there is no insulation on this side, but there is insulation on this side. This is what allows the coil to do a complete 360-degree turn before restarting the process and spinning over and over again. If this was completely shaven off, it would only do about a 180 and then stop. You need half on this side and completely gone insulation on this side in order for the motor to actually work. Your group should be provided with a block of wood. It is completely up to you if you use this block of wood or not. It's completely non-essential if you want to just put the battery on whatever table you're using and then assembling it from there. It's up to you. Our group opted to use the block of wood. We cut this part out so the battery actually sits into the block of wood. Nice and tight. Nice and there fit. And then these are the paper clips that were completely bent. I'm actually going to take this off for you. So this is the bottom paper clip. This is one, it's the top end of the paper clip. You're going to bend the other way to create a small circle, which the coil is going to sit in. And you're just going to put it in there like that when you're ready for testing, and it's going to spin about that. So there's that. Electrical tape is also provided to you, and that's what you're going to use to actually set the paper clips on both ends of the battery, providing a circuit to when you put the coil inside, and this is what creates an electromagnet. Now you notice it's not spinning. That's because the magnet is not here on the battery. The magnets don't actually have to be on the battery. It's just the best spot. So when you do put the coil in, just make sure it spins freely like that so that you're going to get the most RPM. If you leave this on for a while and the connection is actually good, you're going to notice that the coil and the paper clips itself might start to get hot. That's because this is a short circuit, and that's not a complete circuit, and that's just what creates the electromagnet. So, how do you go about assembling this coil? Well, it's pretty easy. All you need is copper wire. This is the wire that we were provided. Let's see. I can't show you all of it, but I can, but here it is. The basic way to do this is to wrap about 10 coils. Ours is about 15 to 20, but 10, anything over 5 is going to work pretty well. We discovered that the more coils that you actually do, the thicker it is, actually. The faster it seems to go, but that's not completely certain. So you're just going to wrap it around. I'm going to do it 10 times for time's sake. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and one more. You're going to want to leave a tag end on both this side and this side. And you're just going to want to slide this off any marker. You can use a pencil, but it's going to leave a smaller coil. This one is pretty small, just like the one we used. To make a thicker coil, you just wrap it around an object that has a bigger diameter and a bigger circumference. So once you have this here, you're just going to compress it. And you're going to take one tag end. This is the short tag end. And you're just going to put it into the coil. And you're going to wrap it a few times. Try to center this as best you can in order so you avoid the coil being wobbly when it is actually spinning. Do this 2 to 3 times. Just tighten it down a bit. As I said before, just try and center it as best you can. This is completely preference, the amount of times you want to wrap it around. If you don't have anything to cut your wire with, you can just keep wrapping it around, but again, that's going to change the mass and things like that, which is uncertain to affect it. You would have to test that hypothesis yourself. But yeah, this is pretty much the coil we opted with. As you can see, I'm assembling this now. It's pretty simple to make. All you need is the wire and a marker or a pencil or Sharpie, anything like that to actually wrap it around. If you run into this, you're just going to want to stick your finger and pull it back. And just make sure you are running the wire the correct way, or else you're just going to completely undo. Every time you wrap it around the coil to tighten it like that, you're just going to undo it. So if I went back through the top, I'm just going to undo it. So just make sure you're going through the bottom a couple times. With this type of wire, it's actually pretty easy to cut. If you have nail clippers, that works. Scissors works. You don't need a pair of wire cutters. So I'm just going to use a pair of nail clippers because that's what I have on hand. And this is about the third time, so I'm just going to tighten that down, cinch it down, and you have your coil. It's not the best looking thing compared to this one. Still a work in progress. The things you see here, where my finger is, that's just to tighten it down more. That's just made out of more wire that is just kind of free there. Also a little design thing. It makes it look better. So if you just take some nail clippers, we don't need all of this. This is longer than my hand, about as long as my thumb to index. So I'm just going to cut about half of it off and save that in case we need it. On this end, I'm going to do the same. I'm not going to cut about half. I'm going to cut about the same length about. Just make sure you don't cut it too short so that you have to completely redo the coil because you cut it too short and it doesn't fit. In order to shave, you can go with sandpaper. You can take a razor blade and trim it off, but that's quite difficult. Sandpaper is the best, but I have a file on hand. This I have a smaller one, so I'm just going to rub this against it, and you'll start to slowly see that the red insulation is stripping off. Yeah. So that's about half. I don't know if you can tell, but that's red. That's more copperish. Looks a lot like copper wire. Make sure you can get down as close to the center of the coil here with the insulation so that if it does slide to one side, it's not going to stop the whole process. It's just going to continue. I'm probably not going to be able to do that very well with a file, but you know, what you have is what you have, and I would recommend sandpaper because that's what's worked best. So that's about half, maybe a little bit less than half. I'll probably do a better job, but I'm just doing this on the fly. And then you're just going to do the same thing on the other side, but you're going to do it to all sides. This file actually sucks, so I'm going to switch to this one. Just going to run it across like that. You might see some red shavings down there. And that's when you know you are filing that insulation off. Actually, this file sucks too, so I'm going to switch back. Just file this off to the best of your ability. Get it down, as like I said before, just get it down here as close as you can so you don't run any issues. Again, one side you're going to file about half of it off, so half of the diameter. So on the side that my thumb is, you're going to file that side off, and then on the other side of the coil, like I'm doing now, you're going to file both sides, all sides off. And again, like I said before, the reason you do that is so that the coil actually does a complete 360 and not about a 180. If you did not do that, the connection between the paper clips and the coil would always be there. And if you actually do test this and you get it all assembled, you're going to notice that the side that has about half of the insulation stripped off, you're going to notice sparks where it is connecting to the paper clips. That is because it is the connection starting and turning off, like terminating and coming back to it again and again and again. And that's the reason it turns. So once you get about all of this off, you're going to see that all of that insulation is now off. You're going to trim this to the width of your paper clips, which is going to be about there. Try to make, again, like I said before, make it into the center. That's about center-ish. You don't want the wire up here, you know, up here. It's going to look more like that and spin oddly. So get it to the center. When you do trim these, You're going to want these to be as straight as possible. It is a bit finicky to get these straight, but just do it to the best of your ability. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight, but relatively straight. You will get the most RPM out of it. Our machine, we got about 400 to 500 rotations per minute. I'm going to show you the exact design that we opted for. So this side's going to be a little bit longer. This actually might be shorter than what it needs to be. So it's completely up to your design. Just going to bend that side almost to about 60-degree angle, maybe even a little bit more. And yeah, that is the coil that is going to spin.